Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome again to Syriana Analysis. I'm your host, Kevork Almassian. Thank you very much for tuning in to today's live streaming, guys. I appreciate you all, whether you're watching me on YouTube or on Rumble. And I was trying to find the answer for a problem that my YouTube channel since 3-4 days is facing, and it is that people aren't able to leave a comment on the live streamings that I post. When the live streaming is over and then you want to just leave a comment, then you cannot. And I'm turning on the option of comments for all. And in a few seconds, it turns off back automatically. So today I contacted YouTube and I couldn't find an answer yet. So I'm trying to, so lots of people are facing the same thing. One of the commentators say YouTube been turning off comments on videos about Palestine. That would be very, very strange if it's only about Palestine, to be honest with you. And today I tried to contact YouTube, but I couldn't receive concrete answers yet. So tomorrow, let's see how this will be, especially that I'm speaking about Palestine again today, and what is happening in the United States. These demonstrations, right? Very quite extraordinary demonstrations, in my opinion, what's happening in the United States, because this is a grassroots movement. This is coming from the universities, coming from the students. It's not a left wing against a right wing. It's not a right wing against a left wing. And it's not a Democratic cause against a Republican cause. And it's not, for example, a Republican or a conservative cause against a left wing. It's not about abortion, for example, something that both sides disagree on. There are people from the left and from the right and from the center, people who are up. They don't consider themselves left or right, and they are joining these demonstrations in the United States. And this is terrifying for the American establishment and officials, because they cannot compromise them and they cannot manipulate them. For example, during the what is called the BLM movement, they were able to infiltrate or have an influence over the discourse of this, and it was also in some of the times was embraced and endorsed by political powers. Or there were demonstrations, for example, or political movements embraced by a billionaire because he has an invested interest in this. Some of the climate change movements, some of the animal rights movements, for example. This is about a clear-cut case in the face of the entire humanity who can see and watch daily what's happening in the Gaza Strip, and they are protesting against that, and especially protesting against the American government's policy, which is complicit with what the Israelis are doing there. Number one arm exporter to Israel is the United States. And the United States vetoed many of the resolutions in favor of Israel. Therefore, they're not able to control the demonstrations, and this scares them. However, the establishment in the United States, the neocons, the Zionists, and some of the left elements as well, who call themselves Democrats or call themselves progressives, etc., there are some of them in every side. There are some voices opposing this. But the main strategy, in my opinion, is implemented by the neocons and the Zionists. And the neocons and the Zionists have decided to adopt a 4-tier strategy. And the first strategy that they have implemented is through the representatives of the American people. So the American people have allegedly voted and elected their representatives, congressmen and congresswomen. And these people, many of them are either bought by the AIPAC or a Zionist lobby in the United States, or compromised, right? And there is this brilliant page on Twitter or X. You should all follow this page. It's called AIPAC Tracker. And if you go to this page, you will see that they are posting how much money every congressman and congresswoman has received from the Israeli lobby. Some of them with tens of thousands, some of them with hundreds of thousands, and some of them are over $1 million of donations from AIPAC. So your representative actually in the United States is attacking you who elected this representative, because their loyalty and allegiance is to Israel, is for the money. And it's for the Zionist lobby and not for the American people. And the second tier strategy that they adopted in this case is to play the victimhood role, play victim. So I'm going to show examples of this during this live stream, but I'm just doing like a summary of this strategy. So they play victim. They send someone into these demonstrations and try to provoke the people to receive a backlash. And when the backlash happens, they record it. But one of these examples was the funniest one, a woman who apparently she doesn't know how these demonstrations are. So probably she heard something from TV on Fox News. So she went to these demonstrations wearing here a Jew. And she tried to provoke the people, and she realized that nobody cares if you are a Jewish person or not, because indeed there are many of the younger Jewish generation are inside these demonstrations. And while she was recording herself, there was a Jewish person behind her demonstrating with a banner for the Palestinian rights in Palestine, right? And the third strategy that they adopted in this is to infiltrate the demonstrations. I mean, I'm not here to say that there are no stupid people among the pro-Palestine people. They're probably someone who just hates the Jewish people, so he finds this an opportunity for him to join these demonstrations. However, you can see the vast majority of the people are just normal people. And the Jewish students and the Jewish younger people are among them, and they are sending texts and posts and videos after another saying that we feel safe here. In fact, we don't feel safe when the police is here, right? So there is no any persecution or violence against the Jewish people for them being a Jew, for example. This is a complete fabrication. So there are some people infiltrating these demonstrations. They are wearing a keffiyeh, for example, and they even cover their eyes, and they say some anti-Semitic things or pro-Hamas statements, and somebody is recording them and then just post it on the internet and say, oh, look, these demonstrations are pro-Hamas or these demonstrations are anti-Semitic. I mean, this is a very old school, let's say, from a playbook of if you want to denounce or undermine any demonstration. So the governments do that, intelligence apparatuses do that as well. And the last one, the fourth tier of this strategy is police brutality and also threats against the students. Police brutality, we have seen many of these videos, but the threat against the students, if you're an American, they're threatening you that you will lose your scholarship or you will not find a job when you graduate. They even threatening you with face IDs, that if you scan your face in this demonstration, then you will not find a job. Good luck with that, etc., etc. I'm going to show you all these examples. And others are threatening the migrant students, say if you're here on a student visa, then you have to be deported. So this is the freedom of assembly and the freedom of speech and the First Amendment, blah, 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 that the American officials were, in Arabic we say, they ironed our brains with, right? It's like they keep telling us about all these rights and all these privileges that you would enjoy if you're an American. But once these demonstrations really become dangerous for them and for their narrative, and they cannot control it, then they start smearing it and even call the police and even dismiss these demonstrations as anti-Semitic or a security threat, so that they can disperse you and they can just crack down on these demonstrations. So during the Corona times, when I warned many of the left-wing people, I said, don't follow the government's I'm not saying to break the law. I was just saying that don't agree on the police brutality or the state's oppression and suppression against your fellow citizens in your country just because they are right-wing and they're opposing a lockdown, for example, because this will come and bite you again. And because the interests of these politicians could change. And when you are obstacle to their interests, and they will target you. And now many of these left-wing people, they see that the police brutality is not something fun. And the government is able, because they hold the keys of so many powers in the country, and now they are also trying to ban TikTok, or they almost banned TikTok. They call it divestment, like they're trying to resell it to an American so that they can control it, right? So all these things are happening now just because of these demonstrations, because it's organic, because it's grassroots, because these people cannot be bought and cannot be compromised. Now, we have the biggest liar in the world, and that is Benjamin Netanyahu. He saw this and he felt like even his narrative is now threatened. And what is he doing in the Gaza Strip is exposed among the American people as being something wrong. So Netanyahu, he said on Wednesday that the protesters at US universities against Israel's war in Gaza were horrific and should be stopped. And he portrayed them as anti-Semitic. He said, quote, "What's happening in America's college campuses is horrific. Anti-Semitic mobs have taken over leading universities. They call for the annihilation of Israel. They attack Jewish students. They attack Jewish faculty." This is according to him. So a relatively small number of students have staged protests for months at universities in different parts of the country in the United States to protest Israel's conduct of the war in Gaza, according to the New York Times. More than 34,000 people have been killed in Israeli airstrikes and fighting. The majority of them are women and children. The protesters' main policy demand is that the US government stop sending military aid to Israel. Some students have also called on universities to stop investing in weapons manufacturers and to sell or divest, holding in funds and businesses they say profit from Israel's invasion of Gaza and the occupation of Palestinian lands. Organizers of many of the campus groups leading protests around the country have said that they denounce violence and anti-Semitism. But some demonstrators have used anti-Jewish and anti-Israel slurs and other threatening languages, and some Jewish students have said they feel unsafe. And this is why I said there are, of course, people who are stupid, but they are also infiltrators, and I'm going to show you that examples. The protests swelled in recent days at some of the most prominent academic institutions in the country, including Columbia, Yale, Cornell, and the University of Southern California in Los Angeles. The police have responded in some cases by making hundreds of arrests. One impact has been to force university leaders to grapple with how far to permit protests, which are broadly protected as free speech. Some Jewish students and leaders also say they see the demonstrations themselves as anti-Semitic or as fostering anti-Semitism. In portraying the anti-war protesters as anti-Semites, Mr. Netanyahu is aligning himself with some Republican leaders who have sharply criticized university leaders and the Biden administration for doing too little to crack down on the protests. Of course, the New York Times, they will try to show it like this is a left wing against a right wing or a right wing cause because they care about the elections now. Anyways, the Netanyahu government, Netanyahu says this is unconscionable. He said it has to be stopped. Take a look what Netanyahu has to say in this case.
What's happening in America's college campuses is horrific. Anti-Semitic mobs have taken over leading universities. They call for the annihilation of Israel. They attack Jewish students. They attack Jewish faculty. This is reminiscent of what happened in German universities in the 1930s. It's unconscionable. It has to be stopped. It has to be condemned, and condemned unequivocally. But that's not what happened. The response of several university presidents was shameful. Now, fortunately, state, local, federal officials, many of them have responded differently, but there has to be more. More has to be done. It has to be done not only because they attack Israel, that's bad enough. Not only because they want to kill Jews wherever they are, that's bad enough. It's also, when you listen to them, it's also because they say not only death, but death to America. And this tells us that there's an anti-Semitic surge here that has terrible consequences. We see this exponential rise of anti-Semitism throughout America and throughout Western societies as Israel tries to defend itself against genocidal terrorists. Genocidal terrorists who hide behind civilians. Yet it is Israel that is falsely accused of genocide. Israel that is falsely accused of starvation and all sundry war crimes. It's all one big libel. But that's not new. We've seen in history that anti-Semitic attacks were always preceded by vilification and slander. Lies that were cast against the Jewish people that are unbelievable, yet people believed them. And what is important now is for all of us who are interested and cherish our values and our civilization, to stand up together and to say enough is enough. We have to stop anti-Semitism because anti-Semitism is the canary in the coal mine. It always precedes larger conflagrations that engulf the entire world. So I ask all of you, Jews and non-Jews alike, who are concerned with our common future and our common values, to do one thing. Stand up, speak up, be counted. Stop anti-Semitism now.
This guy is quite like, he can lie with a straight face to the entire world and just to reach his point or to score a point, right? Everything is anti-Semitic. Like, you guys were very funny here. Using your brain is anti-Semitic. If you study is an anti-Semitic. If you demonstrate against the policy of a government, a foreign government, you're an anti-Semitic. And this is crazy how they are portraying these protesters. And very unsurprisingly at all, of course, Elon Musk, guys, he retweeted Benjamin Netanyahu's video statement. Elon Musk is straight up retweeting Netanyahu's propaganda now that advertiser boycott really did a number on him, huh? Well, let me explain something to you, Elon Musk. These are not anti-Semitic protests. These are anti-Israel protests. Many Jews organize and partake in these demonstrations. If you are more angry about a couple of college campuses being disrupted, then you are about your tax dollar being used to fund a genocide. I gotta say, you have your priorities wrong, buddy. And the biggest shame in this is that Israel has destroyed every university, all of the universities in the Gaza Strip. Some of them, they just planted bombs under the universities. So like it wasn't an airstrike, because they could come and say always like, oh, there was a Hamas rocket launcher there, right? But when they occupy and they wage a ground invasion and offensive and they occupy a territory, and in this territory there is a university, why would they plant bombs and detonate the university? They have finished. There is no more university left in the Gaza Strip. They bombed it all. They destroyed it all. This was not horrifying for them. What's horrifying is that demonstrations in the United States against this policy. And rest assured, what scares them the most in this, the participation of many of the young Jewish students in this. And I salute them, really. Those are really, really brave. Bassem Youssef, the Egyptian comedian, has made a really good comment in this case. And about Benjamin Netanyahu's statement, he said, I used to think Israel was a client state since, well, it's funded by the US. I apologize for the confusion. The US government is actually their client government. The governors, the senators, the congressmen and women are clearly taking orders from a leader of a foreign country to arrest US students. So why even spend $20 billion on presidential campaign in the US? We already have a president residing in Tel Aviv. All hail President Bibi. This is what Bassem Youssef said. And he mentioned here the how the US congressmen and congresswomen can be bought or are bought. And this is the AIPAC tracker page that I promised you. Like, guys, you just have to go and click on these videos and see how much money these congressmen and congresswomen received. George Latimer, $1,300,000 from AIPAC. Brad Sherman, $730,000 from AIPAC. Nicole Maliotakis, $171,000 from Pro-Israel Lobby. Like, you can spend your entire day and you can go and just click Mike Johnson, $293,000. He's the Speaker of the Congress. Tom Cotton, $237,000. He was on Fox TV yesterday spewing hatred against these demonstrations. Ted Cruz, $1,432,000 from Pro-Israel Lobby. This type of money is crazy. Marco Rubio, $1 million from Pro-Israel Lobby. So you know all these faces. John Fetterman, $244,000 from pro-Israel lobby. This is crazy amount of money that these congressmen and congresswomen receive from pro-Israel lobbies. So how do you think they are going to act and behave when they are compromised and bought like that? And this was a question I also asked, if you remember, Matthew Ho, about this AIPAC tracker. And this is a conversation that we have had together.
But we have a real structural problem here that, even if you did have 90% of the American people against Israel, you would still have massive support for Israel in the American government.
There is this Twitter X account called AIPAC Tracker. And what they do basically,
yes.
They find the pro-Israel statements made by the senators and the congressmen and congresswomen, and they just quote the tweet and post of how much money that this representative has received. And to be honest with you, sometimes I get surprised that some of them only received 60,000, 70,000, or 100,000 from AIPAC, and they are so loyal to Israel. It's like, I thought like they're receiving millions. It's like, is it worth it for 60,000?
That's the really embarrassing thing about our corruption in the U.S. with our public officials. Is it's often very cheap. It's often very cheap. It is. It's kind of embarrassing, right? That our politicians get bought for so little. But chief among those of lifetime recipients, Joe Biden by far is the biggest lifetime recipients of Israeli lobby money. So even if the Holy Mother, even if the Virgin Mary were to appear to him, I don't even think that would shake his decisions. And he also too, we tend to focus a lot on the money. On the pressure that lobbies and interest groups can bear, and that certainly is true. But it's also the case that these people are committed Zionists. They really do believe what they're saying. Joe Biden says there's no bigger Zionist in Washington, D.C. than him, and we all have to believe that.
So, guys, the president of the United States is the largest receiver of donation money from Israeli lobby groups in the United States. This is the president of the United States. So this is the first part of this live streaming, and that is how the Zionist lobby controls the politicians, and how these politicians now are acting upon these donations against their own people and against the demands of the people, right? That is, stop supporting Israel with weapons to commit these heinous crimes in Gaza and in West Bank and in Syria and in elsewhere, right? So this was the first part. The second part, play the victim, and this is the funniest video that I saw in this case. And it's coming from a woman who apparently she doesn't know at all the nature of these protests. And she went there. She's wearing clothing with Jewish and Israeli symbols, made an attempt to provoke others, but was largely ignored. She stood alone at Yale University today, tried to provoke the people, guys, and watch how she tried to provoke them with her t-shirt, thinking that the people hate the Jewish people here, but she was surprised that nobody cares. Like just behind her here, look, it's called Jews for Palestine, by the way. It's just behind her. If you see here, you see Jews for Palestine. Jews for Palestine, for free Palestine, they say. So you see, nobody even cared what she wears here, and she tried. I mean, she tried, but she failed miserably. And her husband, he still thought that it's a good idea to post this video on Twitter and say, look at at this anti-Semitic demonstration in the United States. He literally posted it with such a caption. You saw this demonstration, right? It's very, very vile and anti-Semitic, apparently. And it never ending. I just want to show you a few more examples of playing the victim, for example. And this is really what is she doing? Seriously. They're asking, what are they doing? Just tell us, what are they doing? And she can, like, it's just so hysterical. This is the meltdown, right? And this guy is a professor, Shai Davidai. He's a pro-Israel assistant professor at Columbia Business School. And he served in the Israeli army, by the way. And this is him.
Right now, we are not okay.
Right now, we are not okay. So this is the play the victim and trying to provoke the people, just to receive one backlash, and one stupid person can paint the entire Palestine case as anti-Semitic if one person acts, right? If 99% of them do nothing and just one person acts, then it's entire movement, it will be called an anti-Semitic. And this assistant professor, apparently, Columbia professor Shai Davidai's family tied to weapons manufacturing, apparently. So after throwing a foot-stomping tantrum earlier this morning, Shai Davidai, an untenured Columbia University business professor, was denied access to parts of campus. A self-proclaimed Zionist, Davidai is an Israeli-American who served in the IDF, and he says he's proud of it, and has continually harassed Colombia's pro-Palestine activists, labeling them anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas terrorists. On several occasions, Davidai called for the National Guard to be brought in to brutalize pro-Palestine students. He's even gone so far as to characterize Colombia protesters as Hitler Youth. Davidai comes from a long line of sons. His father, Eli Davidai, is an Israeli business executive who served as general manager of ARC, which describes itself a leading global advanced manufacturing service provider. Among other things, ARC manufactures weapon parts, including polymer magazine for NATO-compatible weapons, triggers and hammers, precision-guided munition components, and more. In 2016, ARC won an award for an AR-15 component, and in 2010 scored a prize for an explosive device made for a Department of Defense application. So it's coming from some very interesting background and interesting family with ties to the weapons manufacturing. And this is a funny video that I found on Twitter, and I thought I would share it with you because it's she is basically mocking, or she, they, them, I don't know, because she's non-binary, she calls herself. Anyways, Shai Davidai and other drama queens at Columbia University protests be like, she made a really funny video here.
What is Columbia doing? They're not doing anything. They're not doing anything. They're just letting Hamas come in. Run with me. The terrorists are right behind. This is Shai Davidai. The end is nigh. Students, where's the National Guard? Where's the National Guard? Where are the police? Why haven't they arrested these Hamas protesters? Do I hear praying? Things are totally out of hand here. I just got assaulted with a Hamas flag. They poked me in the eye. You can read about my whole experience at Barry West's The Free Press. I said my name is Shad Davidai, and I'm drawing attention to the fact that we are in 1939. They jacked my key card to the free lunchroom. Oh, maybe it was the business school. Nonetheless, this is the Gestapo. Look at my face!
I really find it really funny. I mean, whatever she or they or them, stop mocking that. It's just, I don't really care anymore, really. What type of pronouns do they call themselves? But this was really funny, and it just represents the videos that we watched beforehand. This is so dramatic and so meltdown. And this is the play the victim role, right? This is the second one that I told you. Now, the third one, which is the infiltrating the protesters, infiltrating the demonstrations to say some anti-Semitic things or try to smear your opponents, right? And this was a video that I found on Bassem Youssef page. He said that I saw a video on my timeline of people being paid to infiltrate the college protesters to incite hate and shunt anti-Semitic slogans. They call it astrosurfing. At the end of the video, the organizer tells that they will go back to the office for some refreshments. I can't find this video. Can you please post in the comments? And someone thankfully posted this video in the comments, which I would like you to see, that infiltration happens and some of the intelligence apparatuses, of course, do it in order to dismiss their opponent, to smear them, and also to paint them with a wrong image. So this is it, guys. It's a 2-minute video, and some of it is an investigation. It's very, very, very interesting. I will just leave you with this video.
Like, we're going to be more pro-Israel than you can even imagine. Just to, like, provoke everyone. The majority of Americans are pro-Israel. Whereas if you think about Israel in the UK, it's just pure hatred. Your country, like, basically let half of Pakistan do it. You know? So you have a different problem than we do here.
The protesters are on a fellowship program run by a conservative think tank called the Hoover Institution.
This is actually the first foot soldier activity that I think it's important to do.
There's basically just like no Apollo coming in. They got, look, there are these jihadis who basically support suicide bombing, and they're at a campus, and you have to stop them.
So a chance to shout at Arabs?
As we're leaving, we mentioned to our boss yesterday that we're going. She's like, oh yeah, that's mandatory. You need to go. You know what my worst nightmare is? I'm actually not kidding. It's a photo of Dion and I together, and we're just like clearly identifiable. And they're like, "Oh, who are these like traitors who sold out to the Jewish conspiracy for money?" I'm like, "We did. We cost $50,000 plus benefits." So they did a really job getting me excited to show up and protest.
It kind of the way you're putting it kind of sounds a bit like astroturfing.
No. This is astroturf. No, this is actually there's a bus.
What does that mean?
So it's when you set up things.
It's the difference between grassroots and astroturf.
You're taking corporate money and you're manufacturing the image of a grassroots movement with corporate money by basically paying people to appear as activists.
It's not that astroturfing is wrong. It's just that like your astroturf has to be like committed.
If you do happen to speak with any reporters, just stay on message. And what is that message? SJP is a hate group. BDS is a hate movement. The only other thing you probably want to mention is that SJP endorses violence, terrorism, things like that. And you guys are going to be great.
Hey, SJP, what do you think of this? You agree? Resistance? Child suicide bombers?
Real baby killers, these terrorists. They kill women, they kill children, they don't care about anything.
Rape women too, all the time.
Guys, $50,000 plus benefits if you are paid activist. It's really good money, man. 50,000. For 50,000, you can do a lot. I don't know what's the matter in the United States with the 50K, but I think it's a really good money if you want to play an activist. And sometimes it's depressing just to learn that some people can earn so much money with so less. Guys, while you're watching, I would really appreciate it if you just hit the like button. That would really help this live streaming to reach to more people. And I found another post as well, how they are trying to hire infiltrators. And this is coming from, let me just check. So this is coming from Syrian Collective, and it's called Operation Global Insight, no more words. And they want volunteers willing to wear keffiyehs and walk in these demonstrations masked. So I wonder why. I wonder why they want to do that. And this was caught on video, actually, and was reported again by the Gray Zone. I'm thankful for them. And Aaron Mata says, memo to Gaza protest infiltrators disguising themselves in keffiyehs to undermine Palestinians and their supporters. You're making it way too obvious for us to detect. Take a look. Those are two American Jewish journalists and how they can detect these infiltrators.
Never forget the 7th of October. Never forget the 7th of October. Not 5 more times. Not 10 more times. Not 100 more times. Not 1,000 more times. Not 10,000 times.
That was highly suspect to me.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Listen, being Jewish myself, having been around a lot of Jews in my lifetime, that guy sounds Jewish.
He sounds like Jewish. Exactly.
Never forget the 7th of October. Never forget the 7th of October. Yeah, Palestinian talks like that. Give me a break.
Yeah, exactly. My Judar just went off when I heard, and they're like, they've covered everything, including their eyes. Look at that guy.
The 7th of October. Who talks like that?
Never forget the 7th of October. I can see, what's that crazy Zionist wash up in Hollywood? John Lovitz. I could see him saying. Let's say, here, watch.
He's
one
totally
more time.
covered. Come on.
This guy, it sounds like he's,
Remember the 7th of October. Never forget the 7th of October. Never forget the 7th of October. Not 5 more times. Not 10 more times. Not 100 more times.
They're even covering their eyes now to infiltrate these demonstrations. It's crazy. So this is the third tier of this strategy, how they're trying to infiltrate the demonstrations. And the fourth is it's divided into two parts. The first part is the police brutality, and they start, like, even the Iranians are mocking the American government now. Iran Foreign Ministry says it is very concerned about the US government's crackdown on peaceful protesters and asks the US not to undermine democracy. I mean, this is, I think, in Texas, and there is no brutality here, but in other videos there are many of them on the internet, and I don't know if I can even show you because of the censorship. So this is how they're trying to disperse the demonstrations. This is a really fascinating to see all these demonstrations, and this is also a video is circulated. So, of course, the police is following the orders of the superiors here, and the political system in the United States, as we discussed in the first tier of this strategy, many of them are bought or compromised. So it's really funny to see that a foreign leader of a foreign nation, Israel, Netanyahu, he says this has to stop. Isn't this an intervention in the domestic affairs of the United States? Imagine any other leader other than Israel would have said that. It would have been a big scandal, right? Now, they're not only threatening them with police brutality, but they are also threatening them with other things. And this is the craziest tweet that I've seen in this case. This is the Mossad commentary. He says, facial recognition can determine whether you participated in the pro-Hamas protesters at the universities. Your jobs and your degrees will be worthless. Your hiring opportunities will be limited. This is how far they can go in this case. And this is coming from, I think he is the governor of Texas. He says, arrests being made right now and will continue until the crowd disperses. These protesters belong to jail. Anti-Semitism will not be tolerated in Texas, period. Students joining in hate-filled anti-Semitic protests at any public college or university in Texas should be expelled. Ooh, and this is the same dude who in 2019 says that he signed a law protecting free speech on college campuses. 2019, June, and the people are now mocking him. And this aged like a milk. This is what he said in 2019.
Some colleges are banning free speech on college campuses. Well, no more, because I'm about to sign a law that protects free speech on college campuses in Texas.
He looks like a clown now.
Shouldn't have to do it. First Amendment guarantees it. Now it's law in Texas.
Yeah, unless we disagree with you, and then we will call you an anti-Semite and a hate-filled demonstration, and also you will belong to jail. This is the same guy. These people are so hypocritical, man. But how do the Jewish people who participated in these demonstrations feel about these demonstrations, right? And one of the Jared Cannell, he is a Jewish student taking part in the Gaza encampment at Columbia University. He told TRT that he feels 100% safe and that US officials are trying to evade Israel's war crimes by focusing on anti-Semitism on college campus.
I'm a Jewish student at Columbia. When we talk about anti-Semitism on campus, that's taking the spotlight away from Gaza, away from Palestine, and the Palestinian students on campus, and putting it back onto me. I am perfectly safe here, and this has all been a distraction because they don't want us talking about the non-stop massacre of Gaza, of Palestinian civilians being taken out by the IDF. I grew up being taught that Israel was an important part of my Jewish identity, and part of being a Jew was supporting Israel. I was raised Zionist, and then I met a Palestinian for the first time and heard their perspective, and was able to realize that I was on the wrong side of this, that I'd been taught the wrong side of this. To me, calling in the police was an act of desperation. They know where the students stand. They saw the students come together to support their suspended and arrested friends. We see that other universities are following in our footsteps, and we welcome them. We just want to make sure that they do it in solidarity with Gaza and with Palestine, and that the focus is not on us. But we hope that this can be an important step in the liberation of Palestine and an end to the occupation and an end to the genocide.
I'm totally on your side, brother, and you're not alone in this case. Simone Zimmerman, she is also a Jewish journalist and an activist. She says, spent the first night of Passover at the Students' Seder in the Gaza Solidarity encampment at Columbia. The Jewish flank of the Palestine Solidarity movement is growing, and it is so beautiful to behold. Judge yourself how unsafe these Jewish students look. So this was the fest, the Jewish fest. And another woman who takes part of these demonstrations, she says, I'm a Jewish student at Columbia. Don't believe what you are being told about campus anti-Semitism. And it just caught my attention here, what she said. I just want to zoom in a little bit. She says, here is what you are not being told. The most pressing threats to our safety as Jewish students do not come from tents on campus. Instead, they come from the Columbia administration inviting police onto campus, certain faculty members, and third-party organizations that dox undergraduates. Frankly, I regret the fact that writing to confirm the safety of Jewish Ivy League students feels justified in the first place. I have not seen many pundits hand-wringing over the safety of my Palestinian colleagues, mourning the death of family members or the destruction of Gaza's cherished universities. This is how it looks like in the eyes of the Jewish demonstrations among the rest, right? Because they are Palestinians and they are Americans and they are migrants from all around the world participating in this. And this is the danger that I told you for the establishment. When the people unite against a just cause, for a just cause, this is the threat, because they cannot manipulate them, they cannot vote them, they cannot compromise them, unless they want to engineer demonstrations. For example, many of the climate change movements are directed by government forces and billionaires because they want to push this hysteria. And I'm not saying climate change is not correct. It is. There is climate change, right? But the government solutions for this is to increase the taxation, for example, it is only serving their financial interests, just like during the pandemic. They are thinking about their pockets and not thinking about our future, right? So some of these movements are compromised, and they push this narrative all the time, and also the solutions for it. But movements like this in Columbia, in Yale, in other universities, Cambridge, in the United States, is a grassroots movement, and they're unable to buy them. And that's what scares them. The governments try to divide and conquer. And how do they do that? They create cultural wars among the people, for example, black against white, white against black, gender, religion, and everything. Just think of any social problem that you could remember. You will see that there is a government hand in it, because they want to keep the people busy and not to see what the government is doing outside of the United States. And this is not exclusive to the United States. All the empires and all the governments do that. Regional governments do that. Superpowers do that. Small countries do that against their people. Every government does this, right? But when the people have united against for a just cause, and the government cannot divide them, this is the threat, in my opinion. And you will see that how these politicians are completely detached from the reality when you see what, for example, the former House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, she said about these pro-Palestine protesters, and she called them a Russian thing to it.
You know what the protesters and the hecklers are saying about Joe Biden, the label genocide, Joe. Could support for Israel cost Democrats the election this fall?
Well, it's interesting to me that you use that term, because that's what we see at 3 o'clock in the morning outside of our house, flashing as long as this room, a sign that says.
What does this say? If the people are coming to your houses and they're flash this term, which means the people are upset, right? Like she's talking about it as if it's bothering her. If it's bothering you, then you have to solve this problem, right?
Says that, and he has been, as I say, the force for humanitarian assistance to them. He now is calling for the ceasefire. Who's resisting the ceasefire at this point is Hamas. Remember, Hamas is a terrorist organization in our view. Hamas has in its charter the destruction of the state of Israel. So this is more complicated. In terms of your question about the election, it's in Putin's interest for, to win. And therefore, I see some encouragement on the part of the Russians of some of what's going on. I trust the sincerity of many of the demonstrators. It's organic, it's spontaneous, it's real. But some of it, I think, has a Russian tinge to it. In terms of the election, people have to decide. Do you want to save the planet? Doesn't. Do you want to save your personal liberties, women's right to choose, LGBTQ? Do you want to protect the children from gun violence? Do you want to protect our Constitution, our democracy? That's really what's on the ballot, in addition to those two names.
So, guys, this demonstration has a Russian thingy, she said, in it. It's in Putin's interest for what's his name to win. And therefore, I see some encouragement on the parts of the Russians. They're so detached. They have no interaction with the people. They don't know what's happening there. But since I mentioned this, by the way, I didn't mention this. You saw this, maybe I did, I forgot. Anyways, this video that I showed you of at the beginning, Benjamin Netanyahu. And this video was retweeted today by Elon Musk. And this is very, very sad to see where Elon Musk has become to. At this moment, all the information is there, and he's not ignorant, right? Let's agree that Elon Musk is not an ignorant person. And even if he doesn't know something, he has so many people working for him who could do the research and tell him the correct information. And at this point, he has no justification at all to support Netanyahu. No justification. And Netanyahu government is despised even by European governments, even by American governments. They will always support Israel because Israel is their, what they call the ally. But the Netanyahu, and whoever comes in rule, they will support Israel, right? This is just out of question. But the Netanyahu himself and his government, they hate him. In Europe, in Germany, in France, in the United States, they know that he's a psychopath. So you are supporting the worst leader that came in power in Israel, according to Israeli press. And at this point, there is no justification for you to support this rhetoric. This is not something because he hates the woke people that you have to unite, because many of the woke people are among the pro-Palestine cases. I was one of the people who used to mock the woke people. But now there is so much higher and a noble cause that unites us. I'm not a left wing, I'm not a right wing. I told you this many, many times. During the pandemic, when I saw that the conservatives were against the government tyranny, I found myself on their side. When I found the left-wingers now on the side of justice for the Palestinians, I found myself among them. So turning this into a local conversation that those are the junkies, those are the woke people, so we have to stand the other side, it's very immature, it's very childish, and it doesn't serve the case. Because someone like Elon Musk, who is very influential and he owns X, he has to, at least in this case, which is a matter of genocide in front of the ICJ, he has to stay in the middle, stand in the middle. So what do they have on him? Some people are asking this question. Why would he do this? Or do they have something on him? You know, it's really crazy to see him doing this. And I love Bassem Youssef with his millions of followers. In this case, he posted this and he said, "Yo, Elon Musk," I will just make it this bigger. "Yo, Elon Musk, I know you are busy reposting Bibi's tweets giving orders to US officials to go in and arrest American students. I know you lost your balls a while back when you bent the knee and visited Israel without even acknowledging what's happening a few hundred meters away in Gaza. But here is an easy task for you. Instead of reposting the lies of a mass murderer, why don't you go to the universities yourself and see Jewish students standing in solidarity against the killing of humans? Or send an AI-operated bot or something. Maybe it will have more humanity than you." I'm totally on his side in this. This is very, very sad. And this is Ofer Kassif. Ofer Kassif is a Jewish... I think he's Jewish. His profile is in Hebrew here, and he says he's a member of the Knesset in Israel. I don't know. He says, "In this moving video, many students, Jews, Arabs, and others hold a joint Passover Seder, a feast of liberty for all, calling for an end to the war and the occupation. This wonderful event happens at no place other than Columbia University, which in recent days has been labeled in the Israeli media as the stronghold of campus anti-Semitism in the US. This is the definitive proof that opposition to successive Israeli governments' abominable policies towards the Palestinians is not anti-Semitism, and that when there is no proper argument against the protesters, opponents resort to slander and lies. Unmistakably, there also exist critics of Israel who are blatantly anti-Semitic, lying, or ignorant, who must be forcefully resisted, but this is not the case. Many thanks and blessings to the protesters against the massacre in Gaza who support peace and justice for all." Now I will leave you with this video, which is the participation of the Jewish people during the festival. And it's like a 10 minutes video for you to see what's happening there. Just take a watch and check the pulse, how we say, and check the environment, check the climate, see what the people are doing. Are they being aggressive? Are they being offensive? Are they being chill? Are they peaceful? You judge, I'm just going to leave you with this video. And after that, I will just end the live streaming. So thank you so much, guys, for tuning in this live streaming. And before leaving, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe. And if you like to support my independent work on YouTube, like podcasts like this, you can become a patron, guys. The link is scrolling on the screen. Patreon.com/Syriana Analysis. With your support and generous sponsorship of this channel, I can stay independent and bring you 5 live streamings per week between Monday to Friday, 5 p.m. Central European Time, 11 a.m. Eastern American Time. Peace be upon you, upon your families. Now I will leave you with the video so you can watch it and judge yourself.
not like other Passovers. But there's something else, which is we are with our family. We are. This is our movement family. And I want to thank you for being my family during these interminable months. I could never have done it without you, without all of your strength. I have now swallowed the parsley. My friends, I've been thinking about Moses and his rage when he came down from the mount to find the Israelites worshiping a golden calf. The eco-feminist in me has always been uneasy about this story. What kind of God is jealous of animals? What kind of God wants to hoard all the sacredness of the earth for himself? But there is, of course, a less literal way of understanding this story. It is a lesson about false idols, about the human tendency to worship the profane and shiny, to look to the small and material rather than the large and transcendent. What I want to say to you this evening at this revolutionary and historic Seder in the streets is that too many of our people are worshiping a false idol once again. They are enraptured by it, they are drunk on it, they are profaned by it. And that false idol is called Zionism. It is a false idol that takes our most profound biblical stories of justice and emancipation from slavery, the story of Passover itself, and turns them into brutalist weapons of colonial land theft, roadmaps for ethnic cleansing and genocide. It is a false idol that has taken the transcendent idea of the promised land, a metaphor for human liberation that has traveled across space to every corner of this globe, and dared to turn it into a deed of sale for a militarist ethno-state. Political Zionism's version of liberation is itself profane. From the start, it required the mass expulsion of Palestinians from their homes and ancestral lands in the Nakba. From the start, it has been at war with collective dreams of liberation. At a Seder, it is worth remembering that this includes the dreams of liberation and self-determination of the Egyptian people. This false idol of Zionism has long equated Israeli safety with Egyptian dictatorship and unfreedom and client state. From the start, it has produced an ugly kind of freedom that saw Palestinian children not as human beings, but as demographic threats. Much as the Pharaoh in the book of Exodus feared the growing population of Israelites and thus ordered the death of their sons. And as we know, Moses was saved from that by being put in a basket and adopted by an Egyptian woman. Zionism has brought us to our present moment of cataclysm, and it is time that we say clearly, it has always been leading us here. It is a false idol that has led far too many of our own people down a deeply immoral path that now has them justifying the shredding of core commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal.